been forever since I've spoken with you. So we're continuing a series that I started the first week in August, and then we had guest speakers for the next 2 Sundays. So the first Sunday we spoke about intuition, and we looked at this divine idea of guidance, infinite guidance in our lives, and how to know, really know when it's divine or not. And so the first week in August, we said the very, very first thing that we must do in order to be divinely guided, because we talk about that all the time, right? So the very first thing is we talked about the power there is in the simple act of being silent, going within and saying, God, I am listening. God, I am listening. If that's all we say throughout the day, we're going to receive that divine guidance, which we're going to talk about today. And we might say, okay, I'm listening, God. Got it. I'm listening. Now what? Now what? So I'm going to share with you 2 stories. The first one is kind of long, but it's very touching, and it really brings home the point. And it answers the now what question. So when I've told them both, we'll figure it out together. So this is the first story. A young man had been to Wednesday night Bible class, and the pastor had shared about divine guidance and the willingness to listen to God. The young man couldn't help but wonder, does God still speak to people? We might think that every once in a while. So after service, he went out with some of his friends, and they discussed how God has possibly spoken to them, this divine voice that we might hear, or it could be a pull, a feeling, a sense that we might have. And different people talked about how it had happened to them in different ways. And I know we've spoken in our classes about that, and people have told about these incredible demonstrations when we listen to that voice and follow it, right? So anyway, back to the story. Sitting in his car, he began to pray. God, if you still speak to people, please speak to me. I will listen. I will listen, right? So he drove down the main street of town, and he had this very strong, strange thought. Stop and buy a gallon of milk. He shook his head and said out loud, God, how do I know it's you? We ever done that? Like we hear a voice and say, well, what voice is that? Well, he didn't get a reply. We usually don't. And he started on his way home, but again, buy a gallon of milk. The young man thought about Samuel in the Bible and how he didn't recognize or listen to the voice of God. So, okay, God, he says out loud, in case that is you, I will buy the milk. What's the harm, right? What's the harm? This is for us to really take in. This is a really cool story. He could always use the milk, right? He didn't know what he was doing with it. He stopped off, purchased that milk, and started toward home. He passed 7th Street, and he again felt this urge turn down this street. And he thought, this is crazy. And he drove past that intersection. Again, he felt that he should turn around and go down Center Street. So at the next intersection, that's why I have a script. At the next intersection, where are you? Minds people. Very, very important story.
You gotta edit that out.
He turned back. Why? It's good stuff. He turned back, and so then he headed down 7th Street at that intersection. Okay, so he was in this semi-commercial area, the semi-commercial area of town, and you know, it was really dark, and a lot of factories were there, so it wasn't really an inviting neighborhood. But he stopped his car and he looked at this house across the street, and all the houses were dark, so he thought the people were sleeping. But this one house, he just got this message, and it said, go give the milk to the people in that house across the street. And the young man looked at the house, and he's like, they're probably sleeping, and they're going to come to the door, and they're going to, say, what are you, crazy? Or get angry with him. And so he sat in the car for a moment, and he said, Lord, this is insane. This is insane. Those people are asleep, and if I wake them up, they're going to be mad. So again, he felt this strong urge within him that he should go and give them milk. So he finally opened his door and said, okay, God, if this is you, he's still questioning that voice, I will go to the door, I will give them the milk. If they want to look at me like a crazy person, so be it, because I am going to be obedient to this voice that I hear. So he walked across the street, rang the doorbell, and he could hear some noise inside, and a man, yelled from inside, who is it? What do you want? And the man then opened the door, and he had a strange look on his face, and he was standing there, and he said, what is it? And the young man thrust out this gallon of milk. Here, I brought this to you. The man took the milk and ran down the hallway, yelling something in Spanish, talking very loudly, and then a woman came out of the kitchen holding a baby, right? So the man could see, we could see that the baby was crying. The baby was crying, and the man himself who lived in the house had tears streaming down his face. And he began speaking and crying at the same time, and he said, we were just praying. We were praying. We had some really big bills this month, and we didn't have enough money to purchase milk for this infant, for our child. And we were praying to God that an angel or some great something would give us this milk at the same time. And so the young man reached into his wallet at that point, and he pulled out all the cash that he had and just gave them that too. And he turned and walked back to his car with the tears streaming down his eyes. So because it's such a powerful and touching story, we never know how we are touching others' lives. But the point being, we're talking about intuition and that inner voice. Are we listening? And then, are we taking the action that comes with the listening? Because we can hear all these different divine guidance messages, or we can feel them, but if we don't actually take the action, nothing happens. Nothing happens. So we're still moving into the question, I'm listening, now what? So I have another story. So just in case you're not sure about the answer, here's another one. Two men were walking in a field with a bull, and this bull was charging them. One man scampered up the tree while the other one stood his ground defiantly in the bull's path. Get up here, you idiot, his friend called him. So, get up here. And the man on the ground said, the Lord will protect me. And he retorted to the other man retorted, please get up, come up here, join me. And at that moment, the bull butted the man, and he flew in the air, and the bull walked off triumphantly, and the man was injured. The friend scampered down the tree to comfort his bruised friend. And the man that was injured on the ground said, I thought the Lord would help me. And he tried, his friend said. He tried. He was talking to you from up the tree. So we really need to get clear, because the messages come from they get all different ways. And it might not be a voice. It might be a feeling, a pull. So what is the answer to the question, I'm listening, now what? It's to follow that voice, to take the action. In the beginning of August, I shared with you a passage from Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes' book, which we use in Foundations class. Thank you for that. This is what he wrote. The spirit within us is God, and only to the degree that we listen to and seek to obey this spirit shall we really succeed. I'm listening. Now what? Now follow, obey. Obey the voice, obey the feeling, obey it, and do something. Do something. So in her book, Building Your Field of Dreams. Mary Morrissey, who we've taught a lot of her Prosperity Plus classes, she writes in a chapter entitled Guidance, Recognizing the Voice of Inspired Insight. In that chapter she wrote, well, she didn't write, it was a letter one of her clients had sent to her about how she acted on this inner voice. So this was her letter. I was desperate. I lost my job. I was depressed. I was lonely. I didn't know what to do. I heard about a singles potluck that was going on, and the voice inside me urged me to attend. But I didn't really feel that good. I hadn't gotten ready. Still, I kept this feeling was nudging within me to go to this singles potluck. And so it got later and later until I realized that if I actually go, I'd be an hour late. So that was it, right? I decided not to go, but the nudging continued. And it said, go. And have anyone ever had something really powerful and you really didn't feel like doing it? But this, something within you. So this is a letter that actually happened. So finally I thought, okay, if I'm going to practice following this voice, I better go. If I'm late, I'm late. So she quickly raced to a grocery store and got dip and chips. And arriving at the potluck, over an hour late, she found one of the few seats at this table, the dinner table. And as it happened, as it does, synchronicities, right? She happened to sit next to a person that was in need of someone with her skills and really, really wanted that kind of a background in a person. So she concluded in this letter in Mary Morrissey's book, the voice said, go. All I had to do was do what I was told. All I had to do was do as I was told. And so I am suggesting this morning that it's time to listen, not only listen, but to follow this voice. It's time to listen and to do what we are told. And if anyone has authority issues, they're going to go, oh, I'm not doing what I'm told. So don't get all upset about it, because you know you have choice here. Sometimes we react when someone says, this is what I'm telling you to do, and maybe you need to do it. But this is not a parental thing. This is not an authoritarian thing. This is your divine guidance speaking to you that you might have prayed for. And how do you learn to really connect with that voice, with that knowing within? It's to say, God, I am listening. And then when those feelings, that whatever it is, comes up, to actually take the action. Mary Morrissey writes, calmly, clearly, without judgment, our inner voice is always ready to help us move toward the highest good anytime we choose to listen. As we increasingly listen to and follow our inner guidance, we will find ourselves navigated to our dream. You will be told very specifically, listen and you will be led, she writes. Remember that God can only do for us what God can do through us. And I love that line. God can only do for us what God can do through us. So if we're blocked and we're limiting that information as it's coming through, it's not going to happen. We have to be open and receptive. So, I should finish her thing. Okay, remember the God, yeah. Okay, willingly follow then the voice of God, even if you'd rather sit home and fret, is to really take the action, even when you don't feel like taking it. And so there's a really important concept here, and it's to follow this voice to the edge of the light, which I love this. The psalmist sings to God, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. When you carry a lantern at night, the path is illumined only a few steps in front of you. One step at a time, right? So you go to the edge of the light, and the lantern then continues to guide you with that light. And you keep on moving forward, step by step, even if it's a baby step. And only then can the light show you what the next step is. If you stay stuck and don't move beyond that edge of the light, you don't go anywhere. But we demand to know all of the details up front, right? We don't want a lantern, we want a floodlight. We want to just light up that big floodlight and see the whole thing. It's really trusting. If we can't see the end of the path from where it begins, sometimes we get paralyzed and we don't move. We don't move, we stay stuck, and then we wonder why our prayers aren't being answered. They are being answered when we truly listen and then take the action and follow them. The man in our story in the beginning of the talk didn't know that whole plan. He didn't know that whole plan, that in a nudging that said go buy the milk, turn down 7th Street, knock on this strange door that's all dark inside in this questionable neighborhood. No, if he had, he probably wouldn't have gone. And when we look back sometimes at the things that have been so great in our lives, we see that we followed step by step without ever knowing. Remember, we're specific about what we want in our prayers and in our intentions, but we don't outline for God. We don't know the hows. How it's going to happen, I don't know how. But it's taking that first step. That's the important part of that. So I've shared with you in the past how Joyful Gathering became a community. How it even came to be, and it really and truly so many miracles. It was one step at a time. Listening to that inner guidance, feeling it. Say, okay, God, because I could feel the pull. All right, next step, next step. Following the edge of the light and continuing with the lantern. So I said to myself, remember this, I will not start a spiritual community unless I have a strong board with spiritual business people on it. Because that's what I need. So immediately I had Reverend Jessica Ayers, I had Barry and Fran Lefkowitz, and I had Tom Augustino within 3 days of my stating that intention that I cannot move forward, Spirit, until I have this strong board. Then it was there in 3 days. The most perfect people, and except for Jessica, they are all on the board. And we've expanded too. We have now wonderful people on our board. We have a very powerful business board, and we really do carry out, you don't hear too much about our board, but we carry out the business of Joyful Gathering. So I let them do a lot of the talking there. As you know. You know me, no. But this is what I knew that I needed in order to move forward. I'm listening to the guidance. I'm hearing it and then following it. One step at a time, and there's still so much expansion going on. In fact, Dennis, our administrative assistant, he's not here now, but he doesn't even know, since we had our meetings, all of the other different things we got planned for Joyful Gathering. Got a lot of really great things taking place, including giving to the community and outreach. So we got lots of things. It continues is the point. It continues one step at a time, moving beyond the edge of the light where you can't see. Just keep trusting that you're being divinely guided. So, okay, are you willing to listen and ready to take action? But you still have this nagging question. How do I know if it's really God? How do I know if that's really divine guidance? How do I really know? So here's a couple of ideas to help with that question. First, remember that Spirit's voice is always a voice of love. This is important. So if you're getting like guidance, I'm not calling it divine, but guidance, and it's not coming from a place of real love and well-being, we know it is not our true divine guidance, because God is love. It's written in the Bible, and Ernest Holmes talks about that. The God of love. Listen to this. The God of love cannot hear the prayers of one who does not love. So you can pray all you want, but if you are not in a loving space, you are not going to get the correct answer, because the God that we believe in, the infinite source of all that is, that we are a part of, is pure, unconditional love itself. That is that voice that you feel it. The ego might want to stop and stay and not move, but you're being pulled. You're being pulled out of your comfort zone most of the time. Are you brave enough to actually take the step? So that's about as simple as it gets, the voice of love. So the God of our understanding that we talk about is not one of correction, of punishment, of discipline and revenge. No. The voice of God never contaminates or condemns. It always empowers. We talk about that. This is a practical spirituality. And the God of our understanding is one that empowers us to be even more than we are. Even more. We're always becoming. Isn't spirit always creating more of itself into life? It's always expanding. So that's the truth of us. That's the truth of us. It does no harm to anyone, nothing intentionally. If I follow what I am hearing, will it increase my level of enlightenment? These are the questions you can ask yourself when you're hearing this divine guidance, just to clarify. Will this make the world a better place, make me a better person? These are the questions you can ask. Will it make me lighter, as we said in the song? Freer? Will I have more joy, peace, and love? These are some of the questions that you can ask to clarify if this is divine guidance. It's spirit speaking. It's spirit speaking. When we expect that the fruits and attributes of spirit will be the result. And we know that the attributes of spirit are always peace, love, harmony, infinite possibilities, love itself, always. And that will be the result through the law of cause and effect. That will be the result. So you're starting to get it? So we now have a few ideas to help us be divinely guided through life. The first is to have the willingness to listen. One, the willingness to listen. A powerful prayer is, God, I am listening. Truly, the universal law will respond to that. It has to give back what is impressed upon it. It's how it works. The flow, the law of circulation. The second idea is to evaluate whether or not God is talking, or the infinite love intelligence is talking, by asking those few simple questions. Is this coming from a place of love and peace and well-being? And we are complex beings living in a simple world. I happen to like that. Do you like that? Yeah. I made it up. I thought it was very cool. I expected everyone to take out their pens and write that down. Probably been said before. Everything I think I made up. Because there's only one mind, right? We are complex beings, are we not? You're inside your own head. How complex is it living there? It's a simple world. The world itself, nature is simple. So the third is to be willing to take action. Do something. To take that action. And do what is in front of you, even if you don't have the full picture yet. One step at a time. And so I'm going to end the talk with this beautiful reading by Ernest Holmes. So just hear this. I am a center in divine mind, a point of God-conscious life, truth, and action. My affairs are divinely guided and guarded into right action, into correct results. Everything I think, say, or do is stimulated by the truth. There is power in this word that I speak because it is of the truth, and it is the truth. There is perfect and continuous right action in my life and my affairs. Right action alone has power. That power is God, the living Spirit Almighty. This Spirit, he writes, animates everything that I think, say, or do. Ideas come to me daily, and these ideas are divine ideas. They direct me and sustain me without effort. I am continuously directed. I am compelled to do the right thing at the right time, to say the right word at the right time, to follow the right course at all times. I know that this is the truth, and this truth has set me free. That's in Science of Mind, page 56. So, to end this talk, we have 3 things to do to really connect with that intuition. Listen, right? Listen. When you hear the voice of God, is it the voice of love speaking to you? You'll know the difference. You don't ask for clarification, ask for clarity. And the third and last is be willing to take action. And I'm saying, and so it is, that's all I have.